loud and powerful. My fraternal 8-year-old twins were born in Melbourne. At their birth, I said no to vaccines. At the 2-month checkup, I told the doctor that we don't need the vaccines. He responded with, yes, they do, to keep them safe and healthy. He tried to intimidate me and said, if you don't vaccinate, they won't be allowed to attend daycare or later school. So I said, well, I'm educated. I'll just homeschool them. By then I was shocked and confused. Due to my brain injury, situations like this, especially if I'm not expecting it, I can get really stressed out and confused. And I was expecting support from a doctor. I wasn't expecting to be called supposedly inadequate in my teaching skills due to my brain injury, which is what he did. So I asked him, do you think vaccines work? He responded yes, but when I asked did he vaccinate his own children, he faltered in that, and then said, the media tells you that all these different stories about how vaccinations are unsafe and it's all fake news. They are perfectly safe. I responded with, well, if vaccines work and then all the children are protected, then my children unvaccinated will not be a threat to yours or anybody else's. The doctor responded with, vaccines only work if everybody has them. I know vaccines can cause serious adverse reactions, including autism, which is a risk that I was unwilling to take, that could affect our lives forever. These are my children. I brought them here. This should be my choice. The doctor further intimidated me and said that I would be unable to get child support. Now, I don't know much about Centrelink, and I assumed he meant that the whole payment would go, when actually he meant the allotted daycare support would go. And he didn't correct me on that. So I stood my ground and I said, I feel uncomfortable with this, to which he said to me, it is irresponsible not to vaccinate your children. So we did. Both twins had fevers. I called the doctor every day, but only the nurse would take my call. This is completely normal, she says. All you have to do is alternate between Nurofen and Panadol. Now, I know it's not safe to continuously medicate a child, but I was worried that the constant fever would affect their brain. So I just did what she said. This happened at 2 and 4 months. When we went for the 6-month vaccine, the boys stopped breastfeeding after that one. However, everything else was fine. They were crawling on time, walking on time. They were 90 percentile. For twins, that's pretty good. But then the 12 months came and it was the MMR vaccine. And I stressed my concerns all over again. I even wrote a letter that said, I, Dr. So-and-so, will take full responsibility should any injuries occur due to the MMR vaccines to said children. And he told me he could not sign that. So I said, okay, well then who's going to take responsibility should anything happen to my kids? And he told me, you're the parent, you're responsible. Then he said, nothing's happened to them. They've only had fevers with the last vaccines, just as I told you. They will be just fine. Fevers are normal and treatable. This time they were not fine. This was not normal or treatable. They had the fevers, back arching, screaming, fits, stopped eating. Weeks went by. They stopped walking, went back to crawling, and it was more like this GI one-arm military crawl. No more baby sign, no more talking, no more eye contact, and one of my twins stopped talking altogether and was diagnosed with autism when he was 3. 2014 comes along, now they're 4. They want the 4-year-old vaccine. I walked into the same doctor, put both my hands up and said, no. I am now a single parent and I have 2 special needs children. They are not going to get any more vaccines. He calmly said, no problem, I will sign this form for you and you never have to worry about vaccines again. So here I am thinking he's acknowledged what's happened, right? I took the boys to live near my family in the States for 2 years, and they were unable to get the support that they needed for their autism. So we came back to Australia. This time we were in Bondi because it's the only relative I have in the country, so that we could stay and get settled again. I tried to enroll the boys in school. I was told I need to update their vaccines. And I said, no, I've got the paperwork, it's fine. She looked at the paperwork, told me to go see the local doctor. So now I'm at a Bondi doctor's office. I explain the whole story to him, I show him the forms that I still have, and he says, oh no, they don't honour these forms anymore. This doesn't say that your children get injured by vaccines, this said you chose not to vaccinate them. Ooh, I had to breathe. At this point I'm overwhelmed, I'm completely devastated. I've just left my family in the States. I couldn't make enough money over there to support my children, and now once again, I can't protect them from this medical prison that we seem to be in. I thought the Melbourne doctor had sorted this out. At 6 years old they had their 4-year-old vaccines and things went downhill very quickly. I returned to the Bondi doctor and then he agreed with me, yes, obviously there's an issue with your children and vaccines. So he then filled out the Australian medical exemption in July 2016. January 2018 rolls by. I get a letter from Centrelink. The Bondi doctor is not trained in Australia, therefore he should not have filled in that medical exemption form. You need to get your children vaccinated by April 5th or we're going to stop child support payments and partial tax benefit. I took a breath, then I called the immunisation registry and explained the whole situation. She told me just find an Australian trained doctor to fill it out for you. Finally found one. I sent the newly signed forms to the immunisation and get the reply, these are the wrong forms. Went back to that doctor only 10 days after he signed the wrong forms with the correct forms to be told, he's no longer a doctor here, he's a specialist now. You're going to have to get a GP to give you a referral for chronic pain and there's a 3-month wait to see him. So I called Melbourne. The nurse remembered me. I explained we're living in Queensland now. She said, no problem, fax me the paperwork. An hour later she calls me back. It's been too long since the doctor has seen the boys. We cannot help you. So I borrowed some money and I flew to Melbourne. I made an appointment. Walked straight in there, saw that a doctor, and he looked like he had just seen a ghost. I told him that he's the only person with the ability to do the right thing for my boys and fill out the correct paperwork that I thought he had filled out 4 years ago when he assured me I was never going to have to worry about this again. I'm so sorry, Emma, I can't do that. The government has cracked down and doctors are getting targeted and losing their jobs for signing these forms. So I said, explain to me. You know what's happened to my children. You are the doctor and the government is telling you you can't do your job and protect my kids? He repeated that too many doctors are filling in these forms, so the government has cracked down. To which I said, if too many doctors are filling in these forms, then something is obviously wrong with the vaccinations. I stayed as calm as I could while I was in that room with the doctor. He said, you can't prove that's what happened. And I looked him in the eye and I said, other than me, you're the only one that knows what happened in this room. He had no intention of filling out that form. So I finally sat back, let him know that I wasn't leaving the room. And I said once again, did you vaccinate your children? And he said, uh-huh. So I said, I guess your genes are better than mine. To which he turned to the paper and filled it out. I realised that he could lose his job for doing that. So even though I've hated that man for 7 years, I now feel forgiveness that he actually filled in the forms. However, before I left his office, he informed me that they are creating over 100 more vaccines. And he cannot promise me that this exemption is going to protect my boys from those vaccines. So even if you do get that exemption, that does not mean that you're protected. Please stand, please fight, please let it be your choice. Thank you.